What if your smallest act of kindness could trigger a miracle you never saw coming? What if that person you help today becomes the reason your entire community transforms tomorrow? I'm about to share a true story that proves we've been thinking about Christmas all wrong. This isn't about expensive gifts or perfect decorations. This is about how one mother's desperate struggle became the catalyst for a neighborhood revolution that changed hundreds of lives. You'll meet Maria, a woman who had nothing left to give but her last cup of coffee. You'll discover how that simple act created an unstoppable chain reaction of anonymous gifts and unexpected help. And you'll witness the exact moment when an entire street of strangers became family, proving that financial struggle doesn't define your worth, but your willingness to both give and receive just might redefine your entire life. If you've ever felt alone in your struggles or wondered if small kindnesses really matter, get ready. This true Christmas miracle will restore your faith in humanity and show you how to become the catalyst for change in your own community. You know, there's a particular kind of loneliness that only comes when you can't give to those you love. For Maria Rodriguez, a single mother of 2 working double shifts at the diner, this Christmas was shaping up to be the hardest yet. The financial struggle was real, every dollar accounted for, with nothing left for the magic her children still believed in. She'd lie awake at night, the weight of her empty hands feeling heavier than any burden she'd ever carried, wondering how she'd look into those hopeful little faces on Christmas morning with nothing to offer but apologies. Her dignity as a provider felt shattered, piece by piece, with every bill that arrived in the mailbox. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. When was the last time you felt that knot in your stomach, that fear of not being enough for someone you love? Maybe it wasn't about money. Maybe it was about time, attention, or emotional presence. The truth is, we've all faced moments where our resources didn't match our heart's desires. But here's what Maria was about to discover. Sometimes our greatest sacrifice isn't what we give, but what we're willing to receive. The courage to accept help can be harder than any struggle to provide it. Maria's breaking point came on December 23rd, when her car broke down on the way home from work. Sitting in that cold vehicle with the check engine light glowing like some cruel joke, she finally let the tears fall. She'd been so strong for so long, but this felt like the universe itself was against her. What she didn't know was that her quiet breakdown was being witnessed by someone who understood her struggle all too well. Sometimes our moments of greatest vulnerability are exactly when the unexpected help we need is already on its way, waiting for the perfect moment to appear. As she wiped her tears and called for a tow truck, Maria made a decision that would change everything. She'd be honest with her children, not about the specifics of their poverty, but about the true meaning of Christmas. They'd make paper ornaments and tell stories by candlelight if they had to. What she couldn't possibly know was that her quiet act of kindness to the tow truck driver, offering him her last thermos of coffee on that freezing night, had set in motion a series of events that would restore her faith in humanity. The community she thought had forgotten people like her was about to reveal its hidden heart, and the hope she'd almost lost was waiting just around the corner. You know, there's a particular kind of loneliness that only comes when you can't give to those you love. For Maria Rodriguez, a single mother of 2 working double shifts at the diner, this Christmas was shaping up to be the hardest yet. The financial struggle was real, every dollar accounted for, with nothing left for the magic her children still believed in. She'd lie awake at night, the weight of her empty hands feeling heavier than any burden she'd ever carried, wondering how she'd look into those hopeful little faces on Christmas morning with nothing to offer but apologies. Her dignity as a provider felt shattered, piece by piece, with every bill that arrived in the mailbox. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. When was the last time you felt that knot in your stomach, that fear of not being enough for someone you love? Maybe it wasn't about money. Maybe it was about time, attention, or emotional presence. The truth is, we've all faced moments where our resources didn't match our heart's desires. But here's what Maria was about to discover. Sometimes our greatest sacrifice isn't what we give, but what we're willing to receive. The courage to accept help can be harder than any struggle to provide it. Maria's breaking point came on December 23rd, when her car broke down on the way home from work. Sitting in that cold vehicle with the check engine light glowing like some cruel joke, she finally let the tears fall. She'd been so strong for so long, but this This felt like the universe itself was against her. What she didn't know was that her quiet breakdown was being witnessed by someone who understood her struggle all too well. Sometimes our moments of greatest vulnerability are exactly when the unexpected help we need is already on its way, waiting for the perfect moment to appear. As she wiped her tears and called for a tow truck, Maria made a decision that would change everything. She'd be honest with her children, not about the specifics of their poverty, but about the true meaning of Christmas. They'd make paper ornaments and tell stories by candlelight if they had to. What she couldn't possibly know was that her quiet act of kindness to the tow truck driver, offering him her last thermos of coffee on that freezing night, had set in motion a series of events that would restore her faith in humanity. The community she thought had forgotten people like her was about to reveal its hidden heart, and the hope she'd almost lost was waiting just around the corner. That simple act of kindness, giving her last coffee to the tow truck driver, created a ripple Maria never could have anticipated. You see, the driver, an older man named Joe who'd seen his own share of hard times, was so moved by her generosity that he mentioned it at the diner where he stopped for breakfast the next morning. Now, here's where the magic of community really begins, because the waitress who served him happened to be Maria's co-worker and friend, who knew exactly how much that small sacrifice had cost her. Sometimes the universe works through these seemingly random connections, weaving together threads of hope when we least expect it. Let me ask you something. When's the last time you shared a story about someone's kindness? We're quick to gossip about conflicts and drama, but what if we made a conscious effort to spread tales of compassion instead? Try this experiment. For 1 week, make it a point to share at least one positive story daily about someone who did something good. You'll be amazed at how this simple practice not only lifts others up, but transforms your own perspective. That's how unexpected help often begins, with someone choosing to be a messenger of good news rather than bad. Meanwhile, Maria went through her shift at the diner with a heavy heart, serving Christmas cheer to families while wondering how she'd create any for her own children. What she didn't notice was the quiet network of support forming around her. The regular customer who'd overheard her talking to another waitress, the busboy who'd seen her counting her tips with worried eyes, the store owner across the street who'd watched her window shop with her children without ever going inside. Each person carried a small piece of her story, and together, they were about to create something beautiful. Her financial struggle, which she saw as a source of shame, was actually becoming the catalyst for connection. That evening, as Maria walked home in the biting cold, she noticed something strange happening in her neighborhood. People she normally only exchanged nods with were actually stopping to talk, asking how she was doing with genuine concern. At first, she assumed they could simply see her poverty written on her face, but there was something different in their eyes, not pity, but determination. The loneliness that had been her constant companion began to feel less absolute, as if invisible threads were slowly weaving her back into the fabric of her community. Little did she know that while she slept exhausted that night, her neighbors were already planning the most beautiful anonymous gift her family would ever receive. You know, there's a special kind of magic that happens when good people work together in silence. While Maria slept, exhausted from her double shift, her neighborhood was quietly transforming into something out of a Christmas dream. The mechanic fixed her car for free, the teacher gathered gifts for her children, and the grocery store owner packed a holiday feast, all without a single word to anyone about who was organizing it. This wasn't just charity. This was a community restoring one of its own, proving that dignity isn't about what you can afford, but about being seen and valued by those around you. Now, here's a practical thought for you. What if you became the silent architect of kindness in your own circle? You don't need to wait for someone to hit rock bottom to make a difference. This week, try what I call stealth generosity. Pay for the coffee of the person behind you in line, leave a gift card on a coworker's desk, or anonymously cover a small bill for someone you know is struggling. The key is doing it without recognition, because that's when the act becomes pure. You'll discover that unexpected help given secretly carries a special power that ripples far beyond the initial gesture. The morning of Christmas Eve arrived with a thick blanket of snow, and Maria woke with that familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. She'd promised her children they'd have a special day, but her wallet held barely enough for bus fare. What she found when she looked outside, however, would forever change her understanding of hope. There on her porch stood not just one package, but a whole pile of carefully wrapped gifts, a stocked cooler of food, and a simple envelope containing exactly what she needed to pay January's rent. No note, no names, just pure, beautiful anonymous gift that acknowledged her struggle while honoring her strength. As Maria brought the gifts inside, her hands trembling not from cold but from overwhelming emotion, she noticed something extraordinary happening up and down her street. Neighbors were emerging from their homes, smiling at her with tears in their own eyes, and she realized this wasn't just about her family. This was about all of them healing together. The financial struggle that had isolated her had actually become the bridge that connected her to others. Each person had contributed what they could, creating a collective act of kindness far greater than any individual gesture. And the most beautiful part? The second chance she'd been given wasn't just financial. It was the chance to believe in goodness again, to trust that she belonged to something larger than her own loneliness. You know, we often think the most powerful position is being the giver, the hero, the one who provides. But sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is accept help with grace. When Maria opened her door to find her entire community standing there with more gifts and food, she faced a choice that tests us all: to let pride build walls or let gratitude build bridges. Her tears weren't just about the material relief. They were about the profound realization that her loneliness had been an illusion. She'd been seen, valued, and loved all along. That moment of surrender, of allowing herself to receive, became her greatest act of kindness to those who gave. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly allowed someone to help you? I'm not talking about small favors, but real, meaningful assistance that required you to be vulnerable. Many of us would rather struggle in silence than admit we can't do it all alone. Here's your challenge. This month, consciously accept 3 offers of help you'd normally refuse. Say yes, thank you, when someone offers to cook you a meal, help with a project, or even just listen when you're having a tough day. You'll be amazed at how this simple shift not only lightens your load, but deepens your connections. What happened next in Maria's living room was nothing short of magical. Instead of the awkwardness that often accompanies charity, her small apartment filled with laughter and shared stories. The elderly neighbor revealed she'd been lost and found after her own husband's passing by helping others. The young couple admitted this was their first Christmas away from family. The mechanic shared how Maria's coffee gift to the tow truck driver had inspired him to start a kindness chain at his shop. Each person's storytelling revealed how their own struggles had become sources of strength for others, creating a tapestry of mutual support that nobody had planned but everyone needed. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the snow-covered street, something remarkable happened. Maria's home became the neighborhood's Christmas headquarters. People kept arriving, not just with gifts, but with dishes to share, instruments to play, and hearts ready to connect. The financial struggle that had once felt like a personal failure had transformed into the very thing that brought everyone together. Children who'd never met were playing in the snow. Elders were sharing stories by the window. And for the first time in years, Maria felt the true meaning of hope, not as a distant dream, but as a living, breathing reality created by ordinary people choosing to see each other. And the most beautiful part? This was only the beginning. You know how they say one small pebble can create ripples across an entire pond? Well, what happened on Maria's street that Christmas became something closer to a tidal wave of goodness. The local news caught wind of the story, but here's the beautiful part. Nobody wanted credit. The reporter found herself writing not about one family's miracle, but about an entire neighborhood's quiet revolution of compassion. The anonymous gift that started it all had multiplied into dozens of unseen kindnesses, proving that true community isn't built on grand gestures, but on countless small acts of seeing each other. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for your own life. You don't need to wait for a crisis to start creating this kind of change. What if you became what I call a connection catalyst in your own neighborhood? Start ridiculously small. Return a stray garbage can. Offer to watch a package. Share extra produce from your garden. This week, introduce 2 neighbors who don't know each other. You'll be amazed how these tiny connections build what I call social capital, that invisible network of trust and goodwill that becomes everyone's safety net. That's how unexpected help becomes expected, not because people feel obligated, but because they genuinely care. The magic of what unfolded went far beyond material help. The retired teacher on the block started tutoring children in her living room. The handyman began fixing things for elders without charge. A community food share emerged in someone's garage, where people could both give and take without judgment. Maria herself, once paralyzed by shame about her financial struggle, began organizing a babysitting cooperative that allowed single parents to work extra shifts. Each person's second chance became someone else's opportunity, creating this beautiful cycle where receiving naturally flowed into giving and loneliness transformed into belonging. As Christmas Day dawned, something had fundamentally shifted on that ordinary street. The decorations still twinkled, the snow still fell, but the real transformation was in people's eyes. They saw each other differently now. What began as help for one family had revealed the hidden truth that everyone was fighting their own battles, and everyone had something to offer. The dignity that comes from both giving and receiving had created bonds stronger than any contract or agreement. And as families gathered in their separate homes that morning, they all knew they were part of something larger, a living, breathing storytelling of mutual care that would continue long after the Christmas lights came down. You know, the true test of any miracle isn't what happens in the moment, but what grows from it in the days and years that follow. That Christmas didn't just solve Maria's immediate problems. It planted seeds that would blossom into something permanent and beautiful. The spontaneous kindness that began with a thermos of coffee evolved into a formal neighborhood support network they called the Hope Chain, where people could both ask for and offer unexpected help without shame. What started as an anonymous gift had become a sustainable system of mutual care, proving that hope isn't just an emotion. It's a practical skill we can practice daily. Now, here's what I want you to consider. How can you create something lasting from your own acts of kindness? It doesn't have to be grand or formal. Maybe it's setting up a little free library on your street, organizing a monthly potluck, or simply creating a WhatsApp group where neighbors can share resources. The secret is to build structures that outlive the initial emotional high. This month, identify one small, repeatable way you can strengthen your community, then commit to doing it consistently. You'll find that what begins as a single act of kindness often becomes the foundation for relationships that transform everyone involved. A year later, that same street celebrated Christmas with a profound difference. The decorations were familiar, but the connections between houses had deepened into something unbreakable. The children who'd received gifts now participated in choosing presents for other families in need. The elders who'd felt isolated were now the honored guests at multiple holiday tables. Maria, once burdened by her financial struggle, had become the neighborhood's unofficial coordinator of care, matching people's needs with others' offerings with such grace that everyone felt their dignity remained intact. Her second chance had multiplied into dozens of others. As snow fell on the anniversary of that first miraculous Christmas, the neighborhood gathered in Maria's living room, now slightly larger thanks to a promotion she'd earned at work. They didn't just exchange gifts. They shared stories of how their small community had become a model for others. 3 nearby streets had started their own Hope Chains, and the local school had incorporated storytelling about kindness into their curriculum. The reconciliation between what they'd once been and what they'd become was now complete. Strangers had become family, struggles had become strengths, and the quiet magic of that first anonymous gift continued to ripple outward in ways nobody could have predicted. So let me ask you this. What's the one small act of kindness you've been hesitating to give? What connection have you been avoiding making in your own neighborhood because you thought it wouldn't matter? Here's the truth Maria's story teaches us. Your financial struggle doesn't disqualify you from making a difference. Your loneliness doesn't prevent you from connecting others. In fact, your deepest challenges often become your greatest gifts to the world when you're willing to be vulnerable and let others see your humanity. Now I want you to consider, who's the Maria in your life that needs to be seen today? What's the equivalent of that thermos of coffee you can offer someone this week? How can you become the unexpected help that starts a chain reaction of hope in your community? If this story inspired you to look at your neighbors differently, if you believe that small acts really can create big changes, then do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Why? Because every week we share true stories like this one that prove ordinary people can create extraordinary miracles. Your own journey toward building a better community starts with one click, and I'll be right here to show you how.